Hey there, survivors. Thanks for tuning in to tonight's episode. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It really helps me keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now let's get started. This is Rowan Chambers, broadcasting again for the first time in 5 years. If you're hearing this, if you're still alive, still scavenging through static and storm for signs that you're not the last voice left, then you're hearing a man who once swore he would never speak into a transmitter again. A man who buried his own voice along with the people he couldn't save. I kept my silence like a vow, like armor, a wall I could hide behind when the world turned to ash and memory. And for a long time, I truly believed I'd never break it. Not for anyone, not even for her. But the rules out here don't last. They change with the frost line, with the moonlight, with the sound of boots in snow that isn't yours. What kept you breathing yesterday could be what kills you tonight. And what saved you once, what felt like truth when your hands were shaking and your stomach hollowed out, can rot into cowardice the longer you clutch it. So here I am. I don't know what this voice sounds like to you. Raspy maybe, thinned by winter air and 5 years of disuse. But I remember what it used to be. This was once the voice of an engineer buried beneath concrete and signal towers. Then it became the voice of a scavenger, then a ghost. A rumor people whispered about when the nights dragged too long. There's still someone on the air, someone who used to fix the solar grids at Hightower. But the truth is, I haven't been anyone for a long time. It's been 5 winters since I walked away from the Hightower estate bunker. Since I left behind a world built of reinforced walls and routines that almost convinced us we had a future. Since I watched my sister vanish into the white without a word. 5 years spent watching the world get quieter and crueler. I told myself that speaking into a dead signal was just inviting death. That silence was safety. That isolation was the only promise left worth trusting. And now? I don't know. But I've got frost in my boots, a signal spike fluttering on the gauge, and something in my chest that won't let me die without saying what needs saying. I'm sitting in what used to be a maintenance outpost, just off the old Pike Highway, before it drops into the ravine west of the Springs. Half the road is gone now, collapsed into rust and rebar, like ribs poking through a battlefield. You can still see bits of old signage, shredded guardrails, the skeleton of a plow truck frozen at an angle like it's mid-fall. This outpost was built into the side of the rock, cinder block, cracked, barely standing. But the ceiling holds. It's dry, and for now it's quiet. I hold a backup transmitter up here. One of the old Hightower emergency rigs, solar adapted, narrow band, still wired with copper I stripped from an old hydro relay 2 valleys east. I wasn't sure it would boot, but it did. The antenna's seen better days, and the soldering on the tuner's loose. But with enough elevation and the right slope, the signal might reach west. If the repeaters up near Rifle Ridge are still intact, maybe, just maybe, it'll bounce further. But that's not the important part. The important part is this. I broke my silence because I saw something that made me remember what I'd buried. 2 nights ago, I saw fire on the horizon. Not a campfire, not a flare. Fire like structure burn, like fuel ignition. Not wild and ragged, but timed, contained. And on the ridge above it, lights. Not flickering, not frantic. Steady, rotating. Someone out there still has power, still has control. And I've seen that before. Years back, we built something that was supposed to last. You've heard the name before. Hightower. Some of you may have passed the legends around fires. Stories about the billionaire who built a bunker for the apocalypse. About how he picked his staff, how he filled it with engineers, scientists, water filtration experts, logistics officers. I was one of them. Not for the money, not even for the safety. I took the job because I believed that something better could come from the ashes. I stayed when the others left. I watched it fall, not in flames, but in quiet, in little betrayals, in slow, suffocating dread. And when it all began to crack, Meredith, she walked out, No warning, no note, just a ration bag and a radio clipped to her belt. She vanished into the snow, and I never found out why. I searched for days, weeks. Eventually I stopped. Maybe I couldn't face the truth, that she was gone or worse, had chosen to disappear. But now, something has changed. The fire I saw, it was near the old ash tree, the same spot where we used to mark safe passage, the same place I carved our symbol when I tried to come back and found only bones and flags in the frost. And then I picked up the signal. Faint, split across 2 bands. Pre-recorded loop, old tech. But the voice was real. Unit 7, Tetrarch. Coordinates confirmed. Stand by for entry. Tetrarch. That's not a name from before. That's something new, or something that grew from what we left behind. I've heard whispers about them over the years. Groups that organize infected, that move them like pieces on a board. Using signal drums, shepherd calls, shaped sound, human predators guiding the dead. I never connected the dots, not until now. If she's alive, if Meredith survived, and if she's a part of what the Tetrarchs have become, then I need to see it. I need to hear it for myself, and I need to tell the truth before there's no one left to hear it. That's why I'm back on the air. This isn't just a broadcast, it's a reckoning. This is Rowan Chambers, still breathing, still walking, still haunted. If you're listening, hold on. The mountain remembers, and it's not done speaking. Now I suppose I should explain where I've been, why I went silent. After we left the bunker, me and the survivors from High Pines, we moved north. We followed the ridges, stayed off the old interstate routes where the roamers drift like water through pipes. I tried to keep us out of sight. I taught the group how to move quiet, how to tell which trees held bird nests and which held infected waiting like moss-covered statues. We slept under tarps strung low with twine soaked in pepper and charcoal. It masks scent. That trick saved us more than once. The first year out, I kept broadcasting. Not daily, but often enough to keep anyone listening aware of where we were headed. Then came the ambush. We were camped near a collapsed rail depot west of Leadville. An old repeater tower still blinked in the snow, weak but functional. I rigged our signal to piggyback off its range. I even looped a basic message. Group heading north, non-hostile, seeking stable enclave. And someone heard us, only it wasn't someone offering help. It was someone with a directional scanner and a taste for blood. I still remember the first shout. Midnight. Snow falling thick, real silent. Then a flare went up. Red light screaming into the sky like an accusation. We scattered. Gunfire followed. Real military stuff. Old NATO calibers. They weren't raiders scrounging with rusted gear. These were organized. Clean lines. Helmets with visors. A squad. I lost my radio kit that night. I lost 3 of the people from High Pines. Danny, who grew tomatoes in soda bottles. Luke, who sang quietly when he thought no one was listening. And Callie, 16 years old, always asking questions. She tripped running uphill and I couldn't go back for her. We regrouped 6 days later near a burned ranger cabin. There were only 10 of us left. I said we'd move without broadcasting. No more transmissions. No signals. No light above ground after dark. And I buried the remaining transmitter beneath a boulder marked with rusted snowshoes. I've kept quiet ever since, but silence isn't a strategy. It's a stall. And 2 weeks ago, that stall collapsed. High Pines is gone. If you're hearing this, and you were once part of the outposts near Garfield's Crossing or the Foothill Ridge camps, you need to know. The valley's not safe anymore. Not just because of roamers. Not just because of cold or starvation or loneliness. Something worse found its way in. They call themselves the shepherds. They don't hunt infected. They steer them. They learned how to use sound, like shepherd dogs guiding cattle. They use long whistles, echo chambers made from sewer pipes, signal drums. I heard them for the first time during a fog storm, 3 low pulses, spaced evenly, bouncing down the mountain. And then the infected moved. in sync, like a school of fish. They were driven toward our livestock pens, toward the children's quarters, toward the fuel cache. By the time we realized what was happening, it was too late. We fought for 2 nights. I saw Garrett, the man who taught me how to repair old windmill gear, go down swinging a fencing sword we melted from scrap metal. He took 5 infected with him. Then more came. Only 31 of us made it out. We walked south, back into colder country, back into elevation, back toward the place I said I'd never return. I thought about the bunker every night. I never stopped. I just didn't think I had the right to return. Not after I left it behind. Not after I let Meredith go without stopping her. But now, I'm done punishing myself for decisions made in the haze of collapse. We need walls. We need filtration systems. We need light that doesn't flicker. We need the Hightower Estate bunker. We need home. The plan is simple. I'll guide the survivors back, one mountain range at a time. I've memorized the routes. I know where the infected nest in the winter. I know which tunnels collapse in spring melt. I know the safest bridge over Blackstone Gorge is the one with ivy growing on the southern side. That means the deck's still stable. It's the kind of detail you remember when you've walked the same trails with frost in your beard and hope in your chest. But the real reason I'm speaking now isn't just logistics. It's because I heard her name. 2 nights ago, during a brief scan of a repeating FM band between 88.5 and 89.2, I caught part of a transmission, bad reception, like shouting through glass. It said, "Meredith, Tetrarch Unit 7, South Approach, Bunker Sector." That was it. Then static. I haven't heard my sister's name spoken aloud in 5 years. She left the bunker the day after our last meal together. No note, no message, no explanation. She took a ration bag, a first aid kit, and one of the encrypted field radios. I searched the surrounding valley for days. I assumed she had been killed, or worse. But if she's alive, and she's involved with a group calling themselves the Tetrarchs, and if they're sending signals near the bunker, then maybe this won't be a homecoming. Maybe it'll be a siege. But one thing I know, I'm not turning back. If you're still listening to this frequency, if you've survived this long by staying quiet like I did, then let this be proof that it's time to speak again. Time to find each other. Time to build something that lasts. Because winter's coming, and the shepherds are still moving the infected like pieces on a board. You're listening to the voice of a tired man climbing back toward hope. This is Rowan Chambers, former caretaker of the Hightower Estate bunker. I'm coming home. And this time, I'm not alone. This is Rowan Chambers. If you're hearing this, I'm alive and I'm moving south. The ones with me, 31 in total, are tucked in the tree line below as I record. I don't tell them when I transmit. I don't ask for their thoughts. I don't want to give them hope unless I can back it with something real. Something made of steel and concrete and filtered air. So here it is, the first real checkpoint on the road home, Blackstone Gorge. You wouldn't find it on most old maps unless you were a ranger or a geologist. It's a jagged vein in the earth, a 50-meter drop where the old runoff river from the glacier used to surge. There's only one reliable way across, an iron bridge the military built during the Cold War. It wasn't meant for traffic. It was meant for convoys, missile transport. Back then, they thought they'd need to move fast through the Rockies if something nuclear ever lit up the sky. The war never came, but the bridge stayed. I found it during my first year out of the bunker. Back then, it was overgrown, but the foundations were solid. You had to crawl over a stack of crushed SUVs to reach the middle span, but it held. I carved a mark into one of the rusted beams, a compass rose, with a circle through the north point. Meredith knew that symbol. We used to draw it as kids in the margins of our textbooks, our way of saying, "Go north if you're lost." She never answered it. Now I'm back at the bridge, 10 days south from the ruins of High Pines. It's worse than I remember. The wind here screams, comes in low, funnels through the gorge like a wounded animal. It carries sound too well, too far. The bridge groans with every gust, like it resents being remembered. Below, the river's mostly gone, melted out. Just a trickle now, sliding between skeletal trees and algae-coated stones. But it's still too deep to cross without rope and luck. The convoy I'm leading, families, teenagers, a few older folks. They're not soldiers. They're tired, starved in places food won't fix. I can't afford to make them climb down and back up again. We go across, no detours. First thing I did was check the main support pylons. They're fine, weeds in the seams, but the steel's intact. That ivy I mentioned, still there on the south side, just like I remembered. That's how I knew it hadn't collapsed. Second thing, clear the center. A pile of old vehicles was wedged in the way. Looked like they were parked there in a rush. 2 police cruisers, a postal van with its side door caved in, a moving truck halfway burned through, the cabin window melted like plasticine. Had to get them out. Took us 3 hours with pry bars and a rope winch. While we worked, I listened. That's the part no one tells you. When you're in the post-apocalyptic quiet for long enough, your hearing adjusts. You stop listening for voices and start listening for movement. A twig break, a cough that doesn't belong to your camp, a foot dragging stone that isn't your own. Your brain tunes into wrongness like an instinct. Twice during the clearing I paused. First time, thought I heard metal rattling under the gorge, like chains being dragged along stone. Second time, near dusk, I heard a low moan from the eastern ridge. Just once, then silence. I've seen infected mimic bird calls before. I've seen them crouched in grass with their jaws unhinged like dead things, but waiting, aware. But mimicry like that, a single sound and then nothing. That's how the shepherds operate. They use whispers the way we use flashlights. A flicker in the dark, a sign. They steer roamers like livestock. Sound as bait, echo as command. I don't know what they want. I don't think they know either. Sometimes it's supplies. Sometimes it's territory. Sometimes it's just to remind us that they've learned. Tonight, the wind brought one of their whistles. Not a high-pitched sound, not something obvious. It was a double tap. 2 hollow pulses in the air, metal on metal, repeated every 7 seconds. I timed it with my wristwatch. I know this isn't just paranoia, because just before nightfall, one of the younger boys, Adam, found a length of PVC pipe tucked behind the guardrail. Short, maybe 2 feet, taped shut on one end, slits carved down the length. It's a sound tube. You blow into it, and the slits shape the whistle, long range, lightweight, and made from plumbing supplies any survivor could scavenge. The shepherds left it behind. Maybe they were here before us. Maybe they're watching now. But we crossed anyway. One by one, we moved across the iron ribs of the bridge. I went first, tied climbing rope to the front railing in case the wind shoved someone too hard. We kept to the metal seams. No one spoke. Halfway across, I looked down, and for the first time in years I saw bodies in the gorge. Human. Not infected. Wrapped in sleeping bags, some still zipped. No signs of struggle. Just stillness. Piled near the tree line like driftwood. That's when I realized. They weren't there 5 years ago. This is a warning zone. A bottleneck. A trap. We didn't run. We didn't break stride. But we moved with purpose. I kept the boy, Adam, at the front with me. Gave him the rope coil. Told him if he saw anything move that wasn't in our line, he should drop it and run. He never did. We made it. All of us. The south side of the gorge is less forested. Pine breaks give way to shale slopes and dry grass. Good visibility, bad cover. But it's a necessary trade-off. The closer we get to the valley, the more important it becomes to see who's behind us. I'm setting up a perimeter here tonight. Old trick. Tin cans tied with fishing line around the edge of camp. Doesn't stop roamers, but it tells you when they step into your world. I've got the transmitter plugged into the battery cell. I'll shut it down when this tape ends. The group still doesn't know about Meredith. They think we're heading to an empty bunker. They don't know that she might already be inside. That she might be leading the Tetrarchs. That her voice was on a signal meant for someone else. She left me without a word. I don't know if I'm ready to hear the first one she speaks when we meet again, but I'll record it. Because even if this place burns, the world deserves to hear why. This is Rowan Chambers. We're crossing mountains now, heading into memory, heading home. This is Rowan Chambers, broadcasting again from south of Blackstone Gorge. Third night since the crossing. We're camped in a basin shaped like a broken bowl, ringed on all sides by old growth pine and sharp outcroppings. The kind of place the wind curls through like it's trying to whisper. We're holding for weather. The pass ahead has iced over. A rock slide 2 nights ago blocked the northern switchback. We're rerouting around it, but the detour adds 2 days. The group's tired and so am I. Still, everyone's alive. That shouldn't mean what it does now, but it does. This morning we boiled snow and cleared the canned food stores. I taught a young girl named May how to make tinder from pine shavings and dried moss. She asked me if I'd ever lived in a house with a fireplace. I told her yes, once. She stared at me like I was describing a fairy tale. Tonight, while most of them sleep, I'm perched on a ridge above the basin with the transmitter and the tape recorder. The others think I'm on watch. I am. But I'm also here to talk, or maybe to confess. Because the thing is, I've been back this way before, not with a group, not like this. But once, 2 years ago, I tried returning to the bunker, alone. I never told anyone. I'd been scavenging near an old ranger depot when I caught a cold band signal that sounded like home. Not Meredith, not a warning, just the old alert loop that used to play every hour in the bunker hallways. A static heavy female voice repeating, "Facility secure, entry conditional, proceed with credentials." It shouldn't have been transmitting, not unless someone had powered up the main console. So I left in the night. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't take anything more than my pack, my revolver, and 3 days' food. I walked 16 hours straight through a rainstorm. My boots gave out before my legs did. I wrapped my feet in duct tape and kept going. When I reached the valley, I didn't recognize it. The hills were charred. The trees stripped down to trunks. There were poles, dozens, driven into the ground, spaced like grave markers. At the top of each pole was a mask. Surgical, cloth, improvised gas filters, rebreathers made from engine air intakes. I recognized one of them. It was made from an old air filter I'd modified for Meredith's field kit. Her initials were scratched into the side. MC. I thought she was dead. Then I heard the whistle. One long note, pure, calculated. It came from the ridge, followed by movement. Not infected, too quiet, too careful. People in layered coats, faces hidden behind dark visors. They carried weapons made for long use. Modified hunting rifles, reinforced batons, steel-capped spears. I froze. They didn't chase. They didn't even approach. They just watched. I waited an hour, then turned and walked back the way I came. I didn't speak of it again. Until now. That's who the Tetrarchs are. They live in the bones of what we left behind. And I think they've claimed the bunker as their own. So you can see why I waited to tell the others. I needed to be sure they could handle the truth. This group, they're good people, but they've lost everything. Their farms, their friends, their purpose. If I told them now that the place we're heading to might be occupied by a militarized faction led by my estranged sister, I don't know what they'd do. Some would turn back, some would break, and some might start asking if I was leading them into a trap. So for now, I keep them moving. I keep their minds on food, on fire, on distance to the next waypoint. And at night, I set the tin can lines. It's old tech, simple. Wrap clear fishing line around the edge of your camp. Tie a can to it every 3 meters. Put pebbles inside. If something brushes the line, the cans rattle. You don't need to see. You don't need to guess. It's a sound you never forget. Last night, just after 3 in the morning, one of the cans sang. I was closest, rolled from my sleeping bag with the revolver ready. No flashlight, just moonlight and instinct. The cans on the east side had tipped. One of the lines was snapped. I waited in the dark, listening. Then I saw him. Boy, maybe 13. Thin frame, winter coat too big for him. He was hunched behind a log, arms wrapped around a steel rod. When he saw me, he didn't run. He didn't speak, just stared. I motioned for him to stay put, told him I wasn't here to hurt him, that we had food, shelter. He didn't answer, but his eyes flicked to the rod in his hands. Then I recognized it. Another whistle pipe, shorter, polished, not like the others. This one was ceremonial, decorative marks along the side, a symbol carved into the mouthpiece, 4 lines forming an angular X. I'd seen it before, etched into the side of the bunker's old reactor housing, Meredith's unit emblem. The boy bolted. I chased him 50 meters before I heard the second whistle. Different frequency, higher, response code. He vanished into the trees. I didn't follow. I still had 31 people asleep behind me. People who needed protection more than they needed revenge. But the message was clear. The Tetrarchs know we're coming. They're watching the trails, and they've got eyes in places I never expected. Tonight, I've doubled the can lines. Set tripwire flares at the southern approach. Nothing lethal, just bright enough to blind someone for a few seconds. Bought them off a trader 2 years ago for half a box of rifle rounds and a working Geiger counter. I've set the radios to a rotating frequency band, one I used to use with Meredith. It's possible she's listening. If you are Meredith, then I hope you hear this. We're not coming to fight you. We're coming to reclaim what was ours. The bunker wasn't just Hightower's haven. It was built by hundreds, maintained by engineers, farmers, teachers, guards. It held more than supplies. It held purpose. And if you've taken that purpose and twisted it into something else, then I'll take it back. This is Rowan Chambers. High Pines is gone. But the ones who lived there still breathe, still walk, still believe there's a way forward. The bunker lies south of us, 2 ridges beyond the crater valley. We'll be there within the week. And whether the lights are on or not, we're going in. If you're out there, listening, send word. If you're nearby, make yourself known. If you've forgotten what hope sounds like, just listen. This is Rowan Chambers. No music, no opening line tonight. Just me. Just a quiet voice against the snow. We made it over the South Ridge this morning, just past dawn. The slope was slick with ice melt, but we moved steady. No one fell. That's a kind of miracle out here, keeping footing when the world gives you every reason to slip. From the top, you could see the entire valley laid out below us. And that's where I need to begin tonight, because the valley wasn't how I remembered it. Not anymore. They've staked flags into the ground. Red cloth, tattered and soaked through from last night's storm, flapping in the wind. Hundreds of them. They're planted in rows, some curved along old logging roads, others strung through the brush like bloodied trail markers. Each one bears the same symbol, an angular X with 4 branching lines, the Tetrarch insignia. I remember seeing Meredith sketch that shape on the corner of her journal in the early days, back when we thought the world could still be managed with neat diagrams and labeled contingencies. Now it hangs like a warning in the wind. The group saw it too. Nobody said anything at first, just stared. Then a boy named Ellis asked the question we were all thinking. Is this where we're going? I didn't lie. Yes, I said, but it wasn't like this before. We moved down into the tree line at the western edge, keeping low. The snow was shallow enough to mask our tracks, but not enough to cover the ground entirely. You could still see old boot prints, wagon wheel ruts, the circular scars left by generator casings dragged through the mud. The valley floor used to be a choke point, a bottleneck leading to the old service road that curved up toward the Hightower perimeter wall. We used to call it the gate path. Now it's something else entirely. The Tetrarchs have taken it over, reinforced it, fortified it like a border. From the hill crest we saw their setup, 2 observation towers made from welded scaffolding, each with a spotter's nest wrapped in tarp and salvaged fencing. Between them stretches a long barricade, trunks cut and sharpened into vertical pikes, wired together with what looks like rebar and cable. Floodlights too, The kind we used to run on diesel back at the bunker. They've wired them to solar arrays angled high on the slope. When the sun hits right, those lights will blind anything coming in from the west, including us. I counted at least 8 sentries, all wearing the same gear. Heavy dusters, reinforced chest plates made from cut tires and steel plate. One had a scoped rifle. Another carried something longer, probably a shepherd pipe, the kind they use to control infected movement. They weren't wandering. They weren't panicking. They moved like they were trained, disciplined. That's what frightened me most. I've seen bandits. I've seen raiders with improvised gear and twitchy fingers. These weren't that. These were soldiers. We pulled back to a ridge hollow. It's sheltered from view but close enough to monitor the path. While the group rested, I scouted east along the slope, following an old deer trail that runs above the valley. That's when I found something I didn't expect. A graveyard. Dozens of shallow markers, most of them ringed with stones or framed with scavenged metal. Crosses, piles of cloth. A few laminated ID tags wired to sticks. I checked one. It belonged to a woman named Jill Parsons. I knew that name. She used to work water filtration in the lower sublevel of the bunker. She was one of the quiet ones, always watching, always listening. And now she's here, dead, buried in the cold, under a Tetrarch flag. There were more names I recognized, old staff, people who stayed behind, some who left like Meredith did, some who tried to find us. I sat there a long time, staring at the markers, trying to imagine who buried them. Was it Meredith? Did she stand over these graves and feel the weight of their loss? Or were they just obstacles she couldn't save? I can't answer that yet, but I will. We returned to camp after nightfall. The others are quiet now, bedded down in their makeshift shelters. A few of them asked if we were going to attack. I said no, not yet. They nodded, some relieved, some disappointed. May asked if there was a way to go around. I didn't answer, because there isn't. The valley is the way in. I'm not sure what Meredith is doing here. If she's leading them, she's done so with planning, with strategy. She's turned the perimeter of the high tower bunker into a military checkpoint. If she's not leading, then someone else is using her symbols, her voice, her memory as bait. Either way, I intend to speak to her. Tomorrow we'll send a runner. I'll draft a message and mark it with a code only she'll recognize. A phrase from our father's field book. Something no one else would know. If she's there, she'll understand what it means. And if she responds, I'll know it's truly her. If she doesn't respond, or if someone else comes instead, then we prepare for something I swore I'd never do again. A fight. This is Rowan Chambers. 3 days from the gate. 3 years of silence to unspool. We're almost home. And if I have to knock, I'll knock loud enough for the whole valley to hear. This is Rowan Chambers, broadcasting again. Last night I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of our makeshift camp, staring at the glow of the floodlights down in the valley. They sweep slowly, deliberate arcs across the trees like giant, blinking eyes. Whoever's running the Tetrarch outpost now, they want you to know you're being watched. They want you to think twice about stepping out of the shadows. Today I sent the letter. We chose Ellis as our runner. He's young, quick, quiet when he needs to be. I taught him how to move like a shadow back in the early High Pines days. How to walk heel to toe in loose terrain. How to breathe through your teeth to muffle sound. He was nervous, but he didn't hesitate. I gave him the envelope, tucked into a waterproof satchel strapped tight against his chest. Told him where to place it, at the base of the leftmost floodlight, just beneath the yellow concrete drum. There's a gap in the fencing there, barely noticeable unless you're looking. The message inside was short. It read, "To the one who left, I am back. You said the mountain would break us, but I am still standing. If you are too, meet me, noon tomorrow, where the ash tree splits the road, North Bend. I'll come unarmed." I signed it with the phrase our father always used when he left for long shifts at the plant. Hold steady, even in the dark. It's not something anyone else would write, not unless they knew him, not unless they were blood. Ellis came back an hour after dusk. He said the lights dimmed briefly while he was gone, just enough to show someone had seen him. No one fired, no one chased. He didn't see a response, but that was expected. If it's Meredith, she'll answer in her own way. If it's someone else, if they've taken her words, her face, her name, I'll know by tomorrow. The camp feels different now, tense, like everyone's holding their breath. They can feel the shift. There's movement in the trees at night, whispers where there should be none. We haven't seen infected in nearly 4 days, and that alone is wrong. This stretch of mountain used to breathe with rot. Now it's just still. I think the shepherds are holding them back, pushing them elsewhere. It confirms something I've suspected for a long time. The infected are not a horde anymore, not just a force of chaos. They're a resource, a weapon, and someone has figured out how to use them with precision. That knowledge changes everything, and it makes the bunker more vital than ever. The high tower complex wasn't just a shelter, it was an interface point, a node. We had satellite uplinks, weather mapping tools, emergency comm lines buried deep in concrete and copper. The equipment was old, sure, but with enough juice, it could still reach across counties, maybe states. I kept those systems on standby for years. I never thought someone else might have kept them warm in my absence. Now I wonder what they've been saying all this time. Tomorrow, I'll go to the meeting point alone. I told the group not to follow. Most of them agreed, though Garrett's widow Eileen gave me a look like she didn't trust that I'd return. I can't blame her. I've spent a long time disappearing into things. Tonight, I prepped my clothes, restitched the lining of my jacket, patched the elbow. Not because it matters how I look, but because she'll notice. Meredith was always sharp about details. If I show up ragged, she'll think I'm weak. If I look too polished, she'll think I've forgotten how hard it's been out here. I need her to see me as I am. The man who stayed quiet for 5 years, then decided silence was no longer enough. The air's colder tonight. A front moving in from the northwest. I can smell the pressure shift. Snow tomorrow, maybe by evening. If things go wrong, that snow will cover blood fast, and no one outside this valley will ever know how or why it started. I keep thinking about what I'll say if it's really her. Will I ask why she left? Why she never sent word? Why she let people die when she could have helped? Or will I ask what happened to her? What broke and why? We used to sit in the greenhouse during the early bunker years, late at night when the rest of the staff were asleep. She'd talk about rebuilding, real rebuilding, with schools, with gardens, with rules that made sense. She said the old world didn't collapse because of the infected. It collapsed because no one knew how to fix it. She thought we could be different. Now I think she believes that dream only works at the end of a rifle. We'll see. If she shows, I'll know in an instant who she's become. And if she doesn't, then we find another way in. There are still service tunnels that snake under the outer wall. Some were collapsed when I last checked, but others might still be passable if we clear the debris. The question is whether we want to take the place by force or by memory. I'm not ready to decide. Not yet. Not until I see her face. This is Rowan Chambers. We're one ridge from the doorstep. Tomorrow the door might open, or it might slam shut. Either way, I'll be there, and I'll be listening. This is Rowan Chambers. Noon came, and so did she. I reached the bend early, maybe 30 minutes before the time I'd written. I didn't want to be late, and I didn't want her to feel like she could dictate the rhythm of this. The ash tree stood exactly where I remembered it, tall and split down the middle, bark peeling like flayed skin. Its branches were bare, long since stripped by wind and weight. It marked the northmost curve of the old entry road to the high tower perimeter wall. Back in the day, trucks used to park there when the snow chains needed checking. Now it's just a landmark in a valley that's changed hands without ceremony. I stood with no weapon in hand. My revolver was back at camp. I wore the old scarf she gave me our first year in the bunker. It's faded now, sun-bleached and ragged at the ends, but she'd recognize it. That was the point. She didn't arrive alone. At exactly noon, 2 figures stepped out of the tree line. The first was Meredith. No mistaking her. Even with the dust-colored duster coat, the new scars running from temple to jaw, and the frost in her hair, I knew her. She walked with purpose but not threat, shoulders squared, eyes locked to mine. The second was a Tetrarch guard, dressed in the full gear I'd seen through binoculars, visor down, weapon across his chest but not raised. She stopped 3 paces from me and didn't speak at first, just looked. So did I. I could see the years in her face, hard years. Not just time but weight. The kind that burrows into you and changes the shape of your thoughts. Then she said, "I didn't think you'd still be alive." And I replied, "That makes 2 of us." We stood in silence after that. No need for fake warmth. No use pretending we'd left on good terms. We hadn't. She'd vanished, and I'd buried that disappearance under 5 years of frost and failed radio signals. Finally, she asked why I was here. I told her the truth, that High Pines was gone, that the shepherds came, and we had nowhere else to go, that I brought 31 people down the mountains because the bunker was the last place I knew could hold the line. She didn't flinch, just nodded. Then she said, "I never wanted this place to be a fortress." I told her it already was one. She didn't argue. Instead, she asked if I remembered what she said the day she left. I said no, because I didn't. She never said a word. She just vanished into the snow and left me to piece together what she meant. She told me now. "I left," she said, "because I knew you'd never let go of the world as it used to be. You'd keep trying to make it make sense. I couldn't do that anymore, not after what we saw, what we had to do." She wasn't talking about the roamers. She wasn't talking about the collapse. She meant the camp in the lower tunnels, the one where we tried to build a quarantine, the one where the infected turned too fast, the one where we had to seal off the doors before the cure was ready. I remember the screams through the vents. I remember her fingers on the button when mine couldn't move. "I went looking for people who didn't flinch," she said. "And I found them." She looked toward the valley then, toward the bunker wall in the distance, behind the flags and the barricades and the watchtowers. "I never meant to take it," she added. "But when I came back and saw what had moved in, what was using the place like a trophy, I took it back, and I turned it into something useful." I asked her what that meant. She said it now houses over 80 people, that they've built growing rooms underground, that the air filtration still works, thanks to the schematics I left behind, that they've made it work. But then came the twist. She told me I could come in, but not with my people, not all of them. "The bunker can't hold another 30 mouths," she said, "and I won't risk what we've built because of ghosts from your past." I asked her how many. She said 10. 10 from my group. That's all they'd allow. The rest would be turned away, given a few supplies, a map, a send-off. That's when I realized something else. The guard behind her. He never spoke, never moved. He wasn't there to protect her. He was there to make sure I understood this wasn't a negotiation. Meredith has control now, not just of the bunker, but of the language around it, the rules, the narrative. And here's the part that chilled me. She said, "If you want more room, take it." Then she walked away, back into the trees. No handshake, no hug, just footsteps crunching through frost until they vanished again. Now I sit here, back at camp, trying to decide what to do. 10 people. That's all she'll allow. Which 10? On what grounds? Skill set? Loyalty? Age? Is that even a decision I have the right to make? And what happens to the rest? I told the group a version of the truth. That Meredith is alive. That the bunker is functional. That some of us may be allowed inside. I didn't say how few. Not yet. I needed time to think. May asked if this means we're safe. I didn't have an answer. Because nothing about this feels like safety. It feels like chess. and I'm playing against someone who already built the board. This is Rowan Chambers, and I just met my sister again. She survived. She's stronger than I remembered, but I don't know if she's still the person I once believed in. This is Rowan Chambers. It's just after midnight, and I haven't slept since the ash tree. I spent the afternoon pacing the edge of camp, marking invisible circles in the snow. The others kept their distance. They could tell something had changed in me. Not anger, not fear, just calculation. They've seen it before, in me, in each other. It's what happens when the world makes you weigh lives like supplies, when you're forced to ask not who deserves to survive, but who can carry the future farther. 10. That's how many Meredith is willing to let inside the bunker. Not a person more. I didn't tell them that at first. I sat on the news, hoping some idea would shake loose, some loophole. But the more I turned it over, the more I realized there's no hidden passage here. No secret mercy waiting behind a locked door. She's serious. 10. So I wrote names, not out loud, not in front of anyone, just pencil on the inside flap of my journal. Skills, health, mindset, stability. The coldest list I've ever made, and I hated every letter of it. Garrett's widow, Eileen. She's been the closest thing we've had to a medic since the beginning. She knows wound treatment, infection control, limited surgery. She's a must. Ellis, our runner, our scout. Quick on his feet, sharp. Too young to have all the weight he carries, but he carries it. He goes on the list. May, she knows plants. Hydroponics. Could recite pH balances from memory before she lost her parents. She's our future food. That's 3. Then there's Brandt, ex-firefighter, built like a tree trunk, but calm under pressure. He's the reason we still have a functioning stove. 4. Seema, seamstress, tailor, scavenger. Knows how to make something out of nothing. 5. Tomas, former electrician, ran solar rigs before the collapse. Saved us more than once when the batteries started shorting. 6. Lena, teacher, the kind who still tells stories by the fire and makes the kids remember what school used to feel like. That voice matters. 7. Darren, used to run logistics for a supply crew near Twin Valleys. Good head for inventory, knows how to ration, how to lead. 8. Then I stopped, because I knew what the next 2 names would be, and I didn't want to write them. One of them is me, and the other should be Meredith. But she's already inside. That leaves 1 slot, and too many ghosts. So I folded the page, put it in my jacket. Then I stood in front of the fire and told them all the truth. I said Meredith is alive, that the bunker still stands, that it's functional, powered, occupied. Then I told them the terms. 10. A silence fell over camp like a closing door. Faces dropped, eyes went flat. The first to speak was Eileen. She didn't ask who. She asked what we were supposed to do with the rest, where they'd go, how they'd survive with nothing left to fall back on. Then Brandt spoke. You knew this before, he said, didn't you? You came back anyway. I told him yes, because where else was there to go? Some nodded, some didn't. It didn't take long before they started forming their own lists. Whispered arguments in the snow, side eyes, people choosing sides they didn't even realize they were drawing. Hope has a price tag now, and it reads room for 9. Someone asked if we were going to vote. I said no, because you can't vote on who gets to breathe filtered air while the rest choke on ash. Then Darren suggested something else, something I hadn't considered. We go together, he said, but not to beg. He proposed that we bring everyone to the gates, show the tetrarchs the truth. Not desperation, but strength, skills, purpose, resolve. Let them see what we've built out here. Maybe they'll understand that 10 isn't enough, that we've earned more. Maybe. But the glint in Eileen's eye said what none of us wanted to admit. If they don't open the door wider, someone's going to force it open. And suddenly, we're not talking about lists anymore. We're talking about strategy. So tonight, the The group sleeps in clusters, weapons closer to hand. And I sit here, wondering if I just set the match to something I can't put out. This is Rowan Chambers. The valley is quiet, but not still. There's tension in the trees, a murmur in the wind. Tomorrow we move closer, closer to the wall, to the truth. If Meredith hears this, I want her to know I didn't come here to take. I came to bring something back. But if you close that gate, sister, don't expect the quiet to last. This is Rowan Chambers. Dawn, the coldest one yet. We broke camp an hour before first light. No one needed waking. By the time I unzipped my shelter, most were already moving. Quiet, purposeful, packing their gear, like they were preparing for something bigger than another day's walk. It didn't feel like hope. It felt like finality, as if they knew this was the last stretch of road where we'd all be together. We moved as a single column, keeping tight through the tree line. The forest thinned with every step. Pines gave way to bare ash and scrub oak, bent from years of mountain wind. The ground here is stone-laced, brittle. Our boots echoed differently, harder, more hollow. We weren't far from the old approach road, the one that leads to Hightower's outer gate, a concrete path with cracks wide enough to lose a foot in. I still remember driving it in the early days, the bunker behind us and the world ahead. Now, it's reversed. By midday we reached the edge of the Tetrarch perimeter. The flags started again, red, weathered, stitched with that angular X. We passed them without pausing, without challenge. No one met us at the tree line, no warning shots, no posted guards we could see. But I knew they were there. At the final rise before the bunker gate, I called for a halt. We gathered in a clearing just beyond the last curve of road. The bunker wall was visible now, tall, dark concrete ribbed with climbing vines and streaks of oxidation. The floodlights hadn't flicked on yet. Maybe they were watching from the towers. Maybe they were waiting to see what we'd do. I stood on a fallen log and looked out at the faces I've come to know better than my own. People who've lost everything and still walk forward. People who buried children, partners, friends, and still found something to protect. I told them this was it, that whatever happened next it wouldn't be clean, that Meredith was prepared to hold the line, and that we needed to be prepared for what that meant. Then I told them my decision. No list, no vote. We all go to the wall together. If the Tetrarchs let us in, good. If not, we see how strong the gate really is. But I made one thing clear. We do not start a war. Not unless it's forced on us. We're not here to burn anything down. We're here to prove we're worth keeping alive. Some nodded. Others didn't move at all. Eileen approached after and said, "You sure about this?" She had her knife strapped high on her chest, handle worn from use. She wasn't smiling. I told her I was sure about only one thing, that I couldn't choose who got to live. She didn't answer, just adjusted her coat and walked back into the group. Then we moved, down the road. No torches, no noise, just boots on broken asphalt, 31 of us, stepping into the open like survivors daring the sky to blink. As we reached the outer gate, the floodlights kicked on. High-powered beams swept over us, sharp enough to cut the shadows in half. No alarms, no sirens, but the message was clear. We see you. We're ready. The gate itself is unchanged, 10 meters of steel reinforced with concrete, painted with the same old hazard stripes. Above it, the main tower, a squat block with windows shuttered by armored plating. In its prime, it was just a lookout post. Now it's something more. A voice crackled through the speaker above the gate. "This is Tetrarch Command. State your purpose." I stepped forward, pulled the radio mic from my coat pocket, tuned it to the frequency Meredith gave me. I didn't bother with formality. "This is Rowan Chambers. I've returned with survivors from High Pines. We request entry. No hostilities, no demands." There was a pause, static, then another voice, not Meredith's, male, clipped. "Your name is recognized, but the gate will not open. You know the terms." I took a breath. All 31 of us are coming. We have engineers, medics, growers, people who can contribute. If that's not enough for you, then you've stopped being survivors and started being jailers. Another pause. Then the line went dead, and the lights clicked off. Not all of them, just the floodlights over the gate. The rest stayed powered. Meredith didn't speak. Not yet. But I know she's there, watching, judging, maybe waiting for me to blink first. The others are setting up a temporary camp just inside the approach lane. We won't stay here long. It's exposed, vulnerable, but I need them close. Tonight I'll send another message, this time not with words. We've begun clearing one of the side access tunnels. There used to be a maintenance shaft that ran under the north side of the perimeter. It was sealed years ago, collapsed in an early quake, but I remember the weak point. If we can dig out even part of it, we may be able to slip through. Not to attack, just to enter. Just to show her that this place was built for more than control. It was built for continuity. And I still believe in that. This is Rowan Chambers. The wall didn't open, but the mountain isn't done speaking yet. This is Rowan Chambers. The dig has started. We broke ground at the north slope just after first light. The old maintenance tunnel was never designed for access from the outside, but the terrain shifted after the early quakes, leaving part of the access point exposed beneath the tree roots. I remembered where the slope bowed slightly, how the snow fell unevenly across a shallow depression near the drainage basin. That depression marked the shaft, buried, cracked, and waiting. Brandt and Thomas led the excavation. We used shovels for the top layer, but once the stone and frostbitten dirt thickened, we switched to hand tools, makeshift picks from old rebar and bent crowbars. It wasn't elegant, and it wasn't quiet, but it worked. After 2 hours, we hit metal. Not rusted, not crumbled. Steel, matte grey, cold as ice. Part of the tunnel's original support collar, still intact, buried at an angle beneath the frozen slope. It was enough to confirm we were in the right place. We worked in shifts. 2 teams digging, 1 on watch. The rest rotated between hauling debris and maintaining perimeter security. I didn't need to remind anyone that this was risky. The Tetrarchs were watching, through scopes, through drones, through old cable-fed cameras still wired into the forest. They hadn't said anything over the speakers since yesterday, but we knew they were listening. They had to be. That silence is worse than words. By midday, we'd cleared enough to expose the emergency hatch. A small square panel recessed into the ground, painted the same hazard yellow from 2 decades ago. I knelt beside it, brushing snow from the stenciled warning label still barely visible. Authorized entry only. Penalty for breach. Termination. Once, that label was meant to stop the desperate from trying to claw their way inside. Now, it only taunts the dying. The locking mechanism had long since fused from weather and neglect. I traced the bolts with my fingers, remembering the manual override process, the inner catch that only released when the internal power grid was active. That system was fried now, buried with the network cables. But we didn't need electronics, just leverage. Brandt wedged a jack beneath the left hinge, while I applied counterforce with a length of pipe. It took 3 tries, and every ounce of tension in our shoulders, but the seal finally gave. Not with a bang, just a deep metallic sigh, like the place had been holding its breath for 5 years. The hatch opened into blackness. Cold air rose from it, not just chilled but stale, like it hadn't moved in years. We lowered a battery lamp and saw what I feared, debris. Lots of it. Collapsed beams, bent conduit, dirt that had seeped in through fractures and pressure breaches. This wasn't a clean tunnel anymore. It was a burial ground for our best intentions. Still, we climbed in. The crawl space was narrow, barely wide enough to move through on hands and knees. We laid plank boards as we went, bracing against loose stone and old cables. May followed behind, holding the second lantern, her hand trembling slightly as she passed me tool after tool. No one spoke. Our breath echoed too loud against the steel ribs of the tunnel walls. After 20 meters, the shaft widened into a split chamber. originally a junction box for utility routing. That meant we were close, maybe 30 meters from the secondary sub-level airlock, assuming the collapse hadn't crushed it. And then we heard the noise. It came from behind the bulkhead wall, metal on metal, faint but rhythmic, a soft tapping cadence, as if someone was working on the other side. I held up a hand and we all froze. 3 taps, pause, 3 more, a signal, but not ours. I recognized the pattern. It was the old technician code we used for low comms inside the bunker, a basic acknowledgement. Still here, still alive. It wasn't automated. Someone inside had heard us. I tapped back, just once. The noise stopped. I turned to May. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. We didn't say what we both knew, that someone had been watching this tunnel for a long time, and they were waiting. We backed out carefully, marking the route as we went. I left a thin copper wire across the tunnel, low enough to trip, but loose enough not to injure. Just a signal. If someone follows, we'll know. When we emerged, the sun was starting to fall behind the far ridge. The sky had gone from blue to bruised grey, and the wind had turned sharp. I gathered everyone, told them we'd made progress. That access was nearly possible. I didn't mention the signal. Not yet. No need to stir things I can't anchor. Eileen asked how much longer until we'd be inside. I told her 2 more days, maybe 3. She nodded, but her jaw was tight. Later that evening, while I was checking the perimeter line, Ellis found me. He said he'd seen lights moving on the ridge. Not spotlights, lanterns. People walking low, not in patrol formation, not Tetrarch guards. I asked how many. He said 4, maybe 5. I asked where they went. He said, toward the tunnel. I didn't sleep after that. I just sat with the radio again, listening to static, waiting for a voice that never came. Not yet. This is Rowan Chambers. We're beneath the wall now, inside its reach. And someone knows we're there. Whether it's Meredith or someone else, we'll find out soon. But I feel the ground shifting beneath us, and I don't know yet if it's making way or closing in. This is Rowan Chambers. I've just come back up from the tunnel. It's almost dawn again. I've wiped the dirt off my face, changed shirts, poured what little clean water we had into the kettle, and still my hands are shaking. I don't think they'll stop for a while. We opened the hatch further today, widened the crawl space until 2 people could move side by side. It wasn't just about speed anymore. It was about what I heard last night, the tapping behind the wall, and what we might find on the other side. No one else knew, not at first. I'd kept that detail to myself. I wasn't ready to explain why I recognized that code so fast, or why I still believe it could only be her. Meredith didn't use protocols lightly. She used them like anchors, buried deep into systems no one else remembered how to access. That pattern, 3 taps, pause, 3 taps, was the one she used in the green room after the second outbreak wave, when the reactor doors sealed and she got trapped inside alone. I tapped it back then too, and she answered. And when we pulled her out, she didn't cry. She just said, "Still here." That's what echoed in my head all night. This morning I told Brant and Eileen the truth, about the tapping, about what it might mean. Eileen stiffened. Brant didn't react, just picked up his tool belt and said, "Then we better make sure we're ready." By noon, we'd reached the inner access junction. The old maintenance sign was still bolted to the wall, faded but legible. Airlock 2B, authorized entry only. The seal ring had collapsed partially, but the panel itself was intact. We cleared enough to get it open halfway, enough to squeeze through. Inside, the tunnel widened into a dry corridor, ribbed with old support beams and emergency conduit lines that buzzed faintly, like nerves just beneath skin. The air was stale but breathable. Ahead, maybe 10 meters, a service door blinked a faint red light, active power, but on backup voltage. Something in there was still alive. I went in first. The others followed after I gave the all clear. May, Ellis, Brant, and Eileen. No one spoke. The silence had weight. We reached the door, and I placed my hand on the access plate out of habit, even though I knew the scanners were probably dead. To my surprise, the plate pulsed faintly. I felt the static crawl over my fingers. The speaker above the frame crackled. Then came a voice. Not Meredith, male, younger, calm. He said, "State your name and purpose." We froze. I looked at the others, then answered, "Rowan Chambers, survivor, engineer, original bunker crew. I'm here with others, seeking entry." A pause. Then the voice said, "You're not listed in the current manifest." I told him the manifest was 5 years out of date. Another pause. Then, unexpectedly, he said, "Wait." The speaker cut off. The door didn't open. We stood there, motionless, in a corridor lined with dust and memory. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, the door hissed. Not open, just unlocked. A faint chime echoed, and the panel's red light turned amber. The man's voice returned. "She wants to speak to you, alone." There was no doubt who he meant. I told the others to wait. Brant started to argue. Eileen just stared, but I shook my head. "If she wanted me dead," I said, "she wouldn't be using a door." I stepped through. The door sealed behind me. Inside, it was warm. Not bunker warm, not the dry recycled heat we used to push through the vents, but lived-in warm. Humid. Human. The hallway was lit with repurposed LED strips, powered by scavenged grid batteries tucked into the wall brackets. It felt different. Not like a fortress. More like a base camp that had become a home. I followed the corridor past what used to be the lower dormitory wing, now refitted with equipment racks, solar charge stations, even a hydro rig coiled with copper wire and insulation foam. At the end of the hall, another door slid open. She was waiting inside. Meredith stood by the old map table, the same one we used to plan ration cycles and quarantine drills. Her coat was off, folded neatly on a chair, her sleeves rolled up. The same scar crossed her knuckles from when she tried to fix the incinerator on her own. Same gaze, direct, unflinching. "You came through the maintenance shaft," she said. I nodded. "I left it unwired on purpose," she added. "Figured if anyone knew it was there, they'd be someone I wanted to see." I didn't ask if that included me. I just said, "Then why the wall?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she poured water from a steel canister into 2 cups and handed me one. It smelled clean, filtered, real. She said, "Because this place can't be everything to everyone, not anymore. It's not a haven, it's a foundation. And if we stretch it too thin, it'll crack." I told her that wasn't her call to make. She said, "Someone had to make it." We sat at the table in silence. Then she said something that surprised me. "I wanted to leave you a note when I left. I wrote 3. I stared. "I didn't leave any of them," she said, "because each one made you a villain in a different story." I asked, "And what story are you telling now?" She looked at me for a long time. Then she said, "That maybe you were right." That's when I realized something deeper. She didn't come back to the bunker to control it. Not at first. She came back to remember, to protect something. And then things changed. Groups arrived. Structures failed. People started dying again. So she did what she always does. She calculated, cut where she had to, hardened her edges. Now we're here. I asked her what happens next. She didn't say you can all come in. But she didn't say no either. She just said, "Let me show you something tomorrow. Then you'll understand." That was it. She walked me back to the bulkhead, unlocked it herself, and said nothing as I passed through. Now I'm back with the others. They're waiting for answers, and I'm not sure how to give them yet, because Meredith is trying to save this place. But she's forgotten what it was built for. And I came back to remind her, this is Rowan Chambers. We're inside. Not all of us. Not yet. But we've stepped out of the cold and into something that still remembers warmth. This is Rowan Chambers. Morning again. I haven't spoken to the group yet. Not properly. After what I saw today, I needed to take time to understand it. Process it. I'm not even sure I fully do. At sunrise, Meredith sent another runner. This one was older, late 40s maybe, with a lean build and watchful eyes that never quite looked me in the face. He handed me a note, folded and sealed with wax, a habit she picked up from the older enclaves. Inside 4 words: Sub-level C, East Wing. I knew the way. The Eastern Hall used to house technical storage, everything from decommissioned server towers to agricultural sensors we never found time to install. I hadn't been down there in over a decade, not since the early bunker rotations. It was the part of the compound we'd written off. Low priority, badly ventilated, partially collapsed from the tremors that followed the detonation in the east. But the corridor is different now. Someone's rebuilt it. Where there used to be exposed wiring and broken tiles, there's clean conduit, bolted paneling, reinforced ceiling brackets with fresh welds. Meredith didn't just patch the damage, she redesigned it, turned it into something new. The hallway descended farther than I remembered. Not a straight line, but a series of descending chambers lit with low-energy bulbs tucked into the crevices. And at the bottom, behind an old biometric doorframe, now rigged with manual locks, was what she wanted me to see. A lab, functional, clean, operational. Rows of hydroponic trays fed from gravity tanks. LED growth cycles mapped on a console running salvaged software. An airlock chamber outfitted with UV sterilizers and thick canvas suits. But the real shock came when I stepped into the second chamber. 4 large containment tubes, cylindrical glass cells with steel base rings and emergency release panels. Cryo units. Not military grade, but close. One of them was active, humming softly. A soft vapor curled from its edge. Inside was a man, not infected, not dead, preserved. His body was wrapped in medical foam, a data tag clipped to his collar. Patient H1, it read. Strain, NRV6, neural response variant, moderate resistance, contained premutation, June 12, 2042. It hit me like a storm. I remembered that name, NRV6. A strain of the original infection with delayed onset and unusual neural activity. There had only been 3 confirmed cases. The CDC lost track of the samples before the labs fell. Meredith found one. She didn't just take over a bunker, she restarted the research. She stepped into the room just as I turned from the cryo unit. No preamble, no dramatics. She said, "I know what you're thinking, and yes, I have the data backups, and yes, I know what they're worth." I asked her what she wanted from me. She looked tired, not weak, just worn the way steel gets worn, edges dulled from too many years resisting everything. "I want to finish what we started," she said. "But I can't do it with loyalty. Not anymore. I need discipline. I need structure. I need people who follow without asking why every time I say no." I told her that's not survival. That's indoctrination. She didn't argue. She just said, "That's the only way we've stayed alive." Then she led me to the 3rd chamber. Inside were the masks, dozens of them. Old, faded, hand-forged, salvaged from every dead community she passed through. Stitched leather, bent steel, filtration layers blackened from use. And at the center of the wall, hanging like an emblem, was one I recognized immediately. The air filter mask I gave her, the one from the day she left. "I built the tetrarchs from the people who made it this far," she said. "The ones who walked out of plague zones, who crossed cities on fire. They were already tempered. I didn't make them soldiers. I gave them order." And that's when I realized what I'd been walking toward this whole time. Meredith doesn't see the bunker as a haven anymore. She sees it as a forge, a place to shape survivors into something harder, more useful, less fragile. In her mind, the world can't be rebuilt from mercy, only strength, only control. And maybe she's not wrong. But I looked at that cryotube, at the man inside, a lost opportunity frozen in glass. a possible answer buried under layers of protocol and fear. And I knew, I can't let this be the end of what the bunker was meant to be. So I asked her if I could bring the group in, not just 10, all of them. Her eyes flickered just for a second. She asked, "And if I say no?" I said, "Then we take the choice from you." That's where we left it. No threats, no shouting, just the line between us drawn clearer than ever before. She let me walk out. I don't know if she'll let me walk back in again. Tonight I return to the camp. They're waiting for my decision, my report, my plan. I don't have it yet, but I know this. The cryo unit works. The infection still has a clock. And Meredith, she's playing a long game I'm not sure ends with any of us still human. This is Rowan Chambers. The past is alive beneath our feet, and the future may be cold, calculated, and carved in stone. But I still remember the warmth we built here, and I'm not done fighting for it. This is Rowan Chambers. I'm back in camp. It's late. The fire's burned down to embers, and most of the group is asleep, or pretending to be. I can hear Brant sharpening his blade by the edge of the cleared ground. Seema's quietly stitching a tear in Ellis's coat, hands steady even in the dark. And May, she hasn't said more than a word to me since I returned. She knows something's wrong. They all do. I didn't lie to them, but I didn't tell them everything either. I said the bunker is intact, that Meredith is running it like a tight ship, and that she's agreed to speak again tomorrow, possibly about access. I didn't mention the cryo unit, or the masks, or the way she talked about discipline like it was the only resource worth stockpiling. What I did say was this: we may get in, all of us, but if we do, it won't be the place we remember. Eileen asked what that meant. I told her, it means the lights are still on, but the people inside, they've changed. She stared at me for a long moment, then said, "And what about you? Did you?" I didn't answer, because I don't know. Not really. Not yet. We held a quiet meeting after that, down in the hollow near the tree line. No fire, just body warmth and shared tension. I told them we needed a plan for both outcomes. If Meredith opened the gates, and if she didn't. Brant was the first to speak. He said we should take the entrance by force if we had to. Not the tunnel, we'd lose too many in a tight squeeze. But the main gate. Use pressure. Threaten to destroy the outer solar array if they refused. Eileen disagreed. She said if we forced our way in, we'd never stop fighting. Not just to stay alive, but to keep control. She reminded us what it cost to hold High Pines, and how it all ended anyway. There's no such thing as winning if you have to live looking over your shoulder, she said. May said nothing, until the very end. Then she looked at me and asked, would she really turn us away? All of us? I wanted to say no. I wanted to believe that deep down, Meredith still remembered what we tried to build in the first place. How the bunker wasn't just a vault, but a promise. But I couldn't give May that lie. So I said, she believes in survival more than she believes in us. That answer settled across the camp like snow on bare branches, cold, quiet, heavy. After that, everyone scattered. Not far, just enough to be alone with their thoughts. Tomorrow I meet Meredith again, and I don't know what I'll find waiting on the other side of that gate. But something happened tonight. Something small, but real. Ellis came to me after most of the camp had quieted. He held out a folded note. No name on it, no markings. Just 3 lines written in quick, cramped handwriting. If she shuts the gate again, we break the lock, no matter who's inside. I looked at him. He didn't flinch. Just said, we're done waiting for permission. Then he walked off. It wasn't a threat. It was a declaration. This group, these 31 people who crossed mountains and storms and shepherd-controlled paths, they didn't follow me here to ask for shelter. They followed me here to reclaim it. And I realize now, it's not just about the bunker anymore. It's about what it stands for. Meredith has built something formidable, safe, clean, efficient. But she's lost the thread of why we started it, to build a future, not just a system. And the more I think about that man in the cryo chamber, the one preserved with data that could change everything, the more I wonder if she's already made up her mind about who gets to be part of that future. We're not looking to tear down the walls, but we're not going to be kept out of them either. Tomorrow, she'll make her offer. And this time, if it's still 10 people, I won't walk away quietly. This is Rowan Chambers. We're at the gate. We're done whispering. Now we wait to see who opens the door. This is Rowan Chambers. It's done. The meeting was this afternoon, just past midday when the sun was high enough to cast long shadows across the valley floor. We gathered in front of the gate, no weapons drawn, no posturing. 31 people standing silent in a line, facing a wall that had once been our shelter, then our memory, and now, something else. The speakers above the steel gate hummed to life at exactly 1 o'clock. This time, Meredith's voice came through. Not the clipped commands or practiced announcements I'd heard before. Her tone was level, maybe even gentle, but there was steel under it. Control, just like always. "Rowan Chambers," she said, "you are granted entry." Then she paused. "But the rest remain outside until further assessment. We will permit 2 others of your choosing to enter with you, for skills evaluation, debrief, and processing. There will be no negotiation." The group didn't move, didn't speak. They just looked at me. I didn't say anything right away. I turned toward the gate, toward the glass-shielded observation window above the speaker. I couldn't see her, but I knew she was watching. I took 1 step forward, and then I stopped. I didn't go in. I walked back to the group, slowly, deliberately, and I said, clear enough for the whole wall to hear, "We don't accept that offer." The silence afterward wasn't angry. It wasn't panicked. It was calm, resigned, even, because we'd known, all of us. Somewhere deep down, we'd known this was what she'd say, and we'd already crossed the threshold inside ourselves. A few seconds later, the speaker crackled again. "This isn't about punishment," she said. "It's about balance. The systems inside, ventilation, food synthesis, energy output, they can only handle so many. The math is the math. This is survival." I stepped forward again, hands raised slightly. Then I said, "You're not calculating survival anymore. You're calculating obedience." There was no response. The speaker went dead, and the gate stayed closed. We stood there for a long time. Then Brant turned to me and asked, "So what now?" That's when I gave the real answer. We stay, we build. Because the truth is, this place, this valley, it's still the best ground we've seen in months. There's fresh water in the creek above the ridge, usable soil at the lower slope, sheltered plateaus for watchposts, windbreaks, even short-range growing tunnels if we can find enough plastic and tarp. We don't need to break into the bunker. We need to make it irrelevant. If Meredith won't open the gates, then we'll build something outside them that makes her question why she closed them at all. Not a rival, not a threat, just an alternative. A reminder of what we used to be before the math took over, before fear hardened into policy. We spent the rest of the afternoon surveying, mapping. The group split into pairs and started cataloging usable resources. Brant found an old transport van wedged into the slope, still sealed, maybe usable batteries inside. May and Seema marked a glade with rich, loamy soil from the runoff. Tomas located the remains of a fiber relay that could be patched into the bunker's emergency antenna if we're bold enough to tap it. We're calling it the landing, not because it's where we arrived, but because it's where we stopped falling. Tonight, the campfire is bigger than usual, not for warmth, for visibility, a message maybe, to Meredith, to whoever's still watching from behind that gate. We're not trying to take your home. We're building our own. This is Rowan Chambers. You said 10 was the limit. We say the limit never mattered. Not when you still believe in the people on the other side of the wall. This is Rowan Chambers. It's been 2 days since we began building the landing. The ground's been stubborn, frozen in some places, too soft in others. But we've managed to set up the first structure. Nothing fancy. Just a shelter frame reinforced with scavenged pallet wood, wrapped in old tent canvas and salvaged wire mesh. Eileen and Seema called it the spine because it's meant to be the start of something bigger, something with structure, something that holds. We've got heat now, real heat. A working stove, an improvised chimney vented with aluminum duct pipe and charcoal filters. The smoke barely rises past the tree line. We keep the fires low, controlled. Brant and Ellis are setting traps around the ridge perimeter. Not just for defense, mostly for small game. Food's already thin. And yet, something's shifted. There's a current in the air again. Not tension, not fear, possibility. The others feel it too. They've started smiling again, in brief, fragile ways. I saw May and Darren sketching layout plans in the dirt, arguing over where to put the water catchment system. Eileen offered to teach Ellis first aid. He agreed without hesitation. These are small moments, but they matter. They're the kind of moments we stopped believing were possible back in the ruins of High Pines. And Meredith saw it. This morning, we found something new by the ash tree. No footsteps, no sounds overnight. But the snow had been disturbed, brushed away in a neat circle. In the center, a single item wrapped in oiled cloth, set on a flat piece of riverstone like an offering. A cassette tape, labeled in her handwriting, for R. I didn't play it immediately. I waited until the others were gathered, then I slotted it into the old deck and hit play. Her voice came through clear, steady, measured. Rowan, I watched the firelight last night. I saw the shelters, the people. I saw what you're doing, what you're trying to build. And I remembered things I thought I'd buried. This place was never supposed to be a fortress. It was supposed to be a foundation. I forgot that. The weight of command changed me. Or maybe it revealed something that was always there. Something I didn't want to admit. That I'm better at control than connection. That it's easier to lead with certainty than to lead with trust. But I remember how we started. I remember the first time the vents kicked on, and we realized the lights might stay lit longer than a week. I remember you sitting by the hydro tanks, trying to fix the filtration loop with duct tape and optimism. I remember thinking, maybe we don't have to be what the old world made us. So I'm offering something different now. Not an apology, not surrender, but balance. We'll open the western corridor, one entrance, limited access, shared resources. No authority passed between us, just agreement. You and yours stay in the landing. We remain here, but we collaborate. Quietly, carefully. We exchange labor, ideas, maybe even safety protocols. We build two paths forward, and maybe, over time, they become one. If you accept, send a reply with the child, the one who ran the first message, Ellis. He knows the way. If you don't, then we stay behind our wall, and you stay beyond it. No harm, no contact. Either way, I'll keep listening. The tape ended. There were no arguments after, just a kind of quiet settling through the group. A collective breath released after too many held for too long. We spent an hour talking. No raised voices, just discussion. Then Ellis came up to me, tape in hand, and said, "I'll go." I asked if he was sure. He said, "Yeah, but tell her I'm not a kid anymore." He smiled when he said it. Then he left before I could say anything else. That was 3 hours ago. He hasn't come back yet. But I trust him. And more than that, I trust the silence that followed. Because for once, it doesn't feel like the kind that comes before a shot. It feels like the kind that comes before a door opens. This is Rowan Chambers. We're building, not to replace what was lost, but to prove we can still begin again. If this is how peace starts, then it starts here, on frozen soil, in the shadow of a wall, with a voice carried on tape and a boy walking into the snow. This is Rowan Chambers. If you're hearing this, then the wall has already lit the sky. Ellis never came back. For hours we waited. At first we thought maybe he was being questioned, vetted, pulled aside for observation. Then dusk settled in, and the western corridor, the one Meredith promised to open, never lit, never stirred. No lights, no voices, no signal. We sent a second runner. Eileen volunteered. She was gone 2 hours. When she returned, her coat was wet from the waist down. She'd crossed the river in silence and approached the ash tree from the ridge above, watching carefully, waiting for any sign of Ellis or Meredith. What she found was the cassette tape, broken in half, left at the base of the tree. No message, no explanation. Just the pieces. That's when I knew. Meredith had never intended a partnership. The tape wasn't a bridge, it was a delay, a stalling tactic while she prepared. I looked toward the gate and saw the tower lights shift, their beams narrowing, focused now, angled down, not outward. Observation changed to targeting. Floodlights trained on our perimeter. Not enough for a strike yet, but close. Eileen said nothing as she dropped the ruined tape into my hand, but her eyes told me she was ready. So we acted. I called a meeting, laid it out plainly. They're not letting us in. They never were. They don't want neighbors. They want silence. They want memory, not movement. And they're ready to erase the rest of us to keep that story clean. No one objected. Brant nodded first, then Seema, then May, voice trembling but firm. We're not going anywhere, not again. We prepped what we had, Molotovs from alcohol and cloth, a pressure charge Thomas rigged using old fertilizer and a spark coil. Not to break into the bunker, not yet, but to blind the gate's sensors long enough to breach the outer shell. We knew the terrain better now. We'd studied every drainage run, every tree cluster. The bunker relied on its walls. We relied on the map. When we moved like a wave, low, fast, precise. 2 teams, one for distraction, one for insertion. I was in the second group. We hit the perimeter under full cloud cover. The floodlights didn't spot us until the first charge detonated, just off-center, near the hydro outflow grate. Smoke rolled across the valley floor, thick and acrid. It wouldn't last long, but it didn't have to. We reached the hatch, the same emergency entrance from before, now resealed, relocked. They'd reinforced it. But we knew the hinges, knew the weak spots. May cracked it open with a pry tool and a crowbar welded into a wedge. Took 90 seconds. 90 seconds of heart-pounding silence, punctuated only by distant shouting and the pop of small arms fire echoing through the ridge. We slipped in. The halls were empty. Too empty. No sentries, no patrols. It was a trap. The lights flickered. Doors locked behind us. Automated security triggered in corridors we thought were offline. The layout had changed. Meredith had redesigned it, just as she'd redesigned herself. We split up. Brant and Thomas went for the power relay. I headed for the control hub. I needed to reach the broadcast console. Needed to speak one last time before it was too late. The stairwell was sealed. I climbed the maintenance shafts instead, hands raw on the cold steel rungs. The old ducting screamed with my weight. I kept moving. By the time I reached the upper level, the first alarm had begun. A low drone meant to alert residents of an internal breach. But there were no residents. No children. No elders. Just soldiers now. And at the center of them, Meredith. She was standing by the map table again, just like before. But this time she didn't speak. Just looked at me like she'd known I'd come alone. Maybe she had. I told her to stop the lockdown. She said, this was never about lockdown. Then she walked away. 2 of her men advanced. I ran. Through corridors I helped design, through doors I helped wire, through memories layered over steel and survival. I reached the broadcast room, locked. Kicked the panel. It opened. Inside, the old console still hummed. Backup batteries kicked on. The signal booster was weak, but still functional. And that's where I am now. Recording this. The landing is under fire. They've mobilized drones, foot patrols, tactical sweepers. Not to kill necessarily, just to erase, to scatter us, to make sure no one questions the clean symmetry of the story Meredith has carved out. But this tape is my witness. This voice is the crack in her wall. This is Rowan Chambers. The bunker isn't a home anymore. It's a tomb, dressed in function and fear. We came here to remember who we were, what we survived, what we could be. And even if she buries us under silence, we still said no. We still lit the fire. We still believed. And someone, someday, will dig this up and know. We were here. We tried. We chose each other. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more unsettling creepypastas. Your support keeps my channel alive. Until next time, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and trust nothing, not even the silence.